There are some very notable similarities between Gurdjieff and Spinoza, even though they lived 250 years apart. And I don't know whether Gurdjieff read Spinoza or not, but there are some statements by Gurdjieff that are strikingly similar to statements made by Spinoza. Maybe they were just looking at the same truth. Anyway, I've got one here from Gurdjieff and one from Spinoza that is dealing with the whole issue of us being slaves effectively, and of living a conscious life. What do those things mean? Well, I'll probably go on to that in a moment. So let me go through Gurdjieff's statement. He says, although the real man who has acquired his own eye, and the man in quotation marks who has not, are equally slaves of that same greatness. Two things there. Slaves, this is a word that Spinoza uses. I could have pulled out a bit from his short treatise where he says we are slaves of nature. Slaves of God, if you want. Gurdjieff here puts the word greatness into quotation marks. I think he's being a little bit sarcastic there. So, are equally slaves of that same greatness. The difference between them, as I have already said, consists in this: that since the attitude of the first towards his slavery is conscious, the man with some I, a more permanent sense of himself, he acquires the possibility, even while serving the all-universal actualizing, in other words, just the laws of the universe, of applying a part of his manifestations according to the providence of great nature, to the attainment of imperishable being, whereas the second, not cognizing his slavery, serves during the entire process of his existence merely as a thing, which when no longer needed, disappears forever. Devastating stuff. This is at the back of Beelzebub's Tales, from the author, I think it's called. Anyway, so Gurdjieff is saying there that whether you are conscious or unconscious, you're still a slave. You can be an unconscious slave or you can be a conscious slave. That's your choice. And to be a conscious slave means that you are dealing actively with what is going on within you. There's a little bit more to it than that, but I don't want to sidetrack. So let me read the statement from Spinoza, which is astonishingly similar. So he says the wicked. Now, the word the wicked, he's not here judging people. For Spinoza, people who understand, have made efforts and so on, are not wicked. The wicked are not people who go around doing bad things. The wicked are just ignorant people, really. The wicked, knowing not God, are but as instruments in the hand of the workman, serving unconsciously and perishing in the using. The good, on the other hand, serve consciously, and in the serving become more perfect. Now, I will be putting out a podcast some point in the next week too, about the whole thing of existence. The thing that is staring us in the face all the time and is kind of obvious, but it's so obvious that we overlook it. For Spinoza, the essence of God is existence. And if you go through the ethics, bearing that in mind, that whenever he uses the word God, he's largely referring to existence, then it helps with the understanding. Anyway, Gurdjieff, for Gurdjieff, the work was about a similar thing. He talked about self-remembering. Well, remembering what? Well, self, but what is self? Self is the fact that you exist. Your existing self, your attention on that existence. I quoted something on the Corporeal Fantasy Facebook thing yesterday, a quote by Madame de Salzmann, who was the elected person to carry on Gurdjieff's work, and she was talking about it's so easy just to go through a day with your attention spread all over the place, spread outside of yourself, with no attention going back to yourself. And she said that the starting point of that is just to recognize that you exist. This whole thing of existence is very, very big. It's kind of obvious, but it's also very important. Anyway, short podcast and two statements that are frighteningly alike. You would be tempted to think that Gurdjieff had read Spinoza, he read Kant, and he liked Kant. I don't know whether he read Spinoza, but you can probably see the similarities.